You think quiet people are harmless. That is your first mistake. Because the most dangerous person in the room is rarely the loudest. It is the one who says nothing, yet understands everything. According to Professor Eleanor Whitmore, silence is not the absence of power, it is the containment of it. Quiet people are not empty. They are controlled, and control is far more dangerous than expression. Most people speak to be understood. Quiet people stay silent to understand others. While you are busy explaining yourself, they are studying you. Your tone, your habits, your reactions, your emotional triggers. They are collecting data. Professor Eleanor Whitmore explains that human beings reveal more than they realize when they talk freely. Every word, every pause, every reaction exposes something deeper. Loud people think they are dominating the conversation, but in reality, they are exposing their patterns. Quiet people see those patterns clearly, and patterns create predictability. The moment someone becomes predictable, they become easier to read, easier to influence, and easier to control. Quiet individuals avoid this trap completely. They do not reveal enough to be understood easily, and that is where their power begins. Silence creates a gap, and the human mind hates gaps. When someone is quiet, you begin to fill the silence yourself. You talk more, you explain more, you reveal things you never planned to say. This is not an accident, it is psychological pressure. According to Professor Eleanor Whitmore, silence forces others to compensate, and in that compensation, they lose control. Quiet people do not interrupt this process. They let it happen. They allow you to expose yourself fully while they remain hidden. This creates an imbalance. You become visible, they remain invisible. And in any interaction, the person who sees more than they reveal holds the advantage. But there is another layer to this. Quiet people are comfortable not being the center of attention. They do not need validation, they do not need approval, they do not need constant engagement to feel secure. This independence makes them extremely difficult to manipulate. Most people can be controlled through attention, praise, or emotional reaction, but quiet individuals are less responsive to these triggers. They are not seeking approval, so they cannot be easily influenced by it. Professor Eleanor Whitmore explains that the less a person depends on external validation, the more stable their internal state becomes, and stability creates power. Because when someone cannot be emotionally shaken, they cannot be easily controlled. Quiet people operate from this stability. They pause before reacting. They think before speaking. They observe before acting. And this delay is not weakness, it is strategy. While others rush to respond, quiet people wait. They allow situations to unfold. They gather more information. They see what others miss because others are too busy reacting. This patience gives them clarity, and clarity leads to better decisions. Most people confuse silence with insecurity, but real silence is confidence without display. The real danger of quiet people begins when you try to read them and fail. Because humans rely on emotional signals to feel in control. We expect reactions. We look for expressions. We depend on feedback to understand where we stand. But quiet people remove that feedback completely. According to Professor Eleanor Whitmore, when expected emotional responses disappear, the brain enters a state of uncertainty, and uncertainty creates psychological discomfort. You start questioning yourself. Did you say something wrong? Did they disagree? Are they judging you? This internal questioning shifts the power dynamic instantly. Now, instead of controlling the interaction, you are trying to understand it. And that is exactly where quiet people gain their advantage. Professor Eleanor Whitmore explains that when a person cannot be read, they become psychologically dominant without effort. Not because they are forcing control, but because others give it to them unconsciously. Silence creates pressure, and most people cannot handle that pressure for long. So they react. They speak more. They try to explain themselves. They attempt to fill the void. And in doing so, they lose composure. Quiet individuals never rush to break that silence. They let it expand. They let it become uncomfortable because they understand something critical. The person who breaks first loses control. This is especially powerful during conflict. In arguments, most people rely on emotional reactions to gain advantage. They raise their voice, they defend themselves quickly, they try to dominate through intensity. But quiet people do the opposite. They stay calm, they listen, they do not interrupt. And this calmness creates imbalance. According to Professor Eleanor Whitmore, emotional neutrality in high-pressure situations disrupts aggressive behavior. When one person refuses to match emotional intensity, the other begins to lose direction. Their strategy stops working, their energy becomes ineffective, and slowly, their confidence starts to drop. Quiet people understand this without needing to force it. They do not engage emotionally unless necessary. They observe the situation from a distance, even while being present in it. This creates a powerful psychological position. They are involved, but not affected, and that separation gives them clarity. While others are overwhelmed by emotion, quiet individuals are thinking, analyzing, connecting patterns in real time. This allows them to respond with precision, not immediately, but effectively. Professor Eleanor Whitmore explains that delayed responses often carry more psychological weight than immediate reactions. When someone speaks after observing everything, their words feel more accurate, more impactful, and harder to challenge. Quiet people use this to their advantage. They do not speak often, but when they do, it matters. There is also a deeper layer of control. Quiet individuals are selective with their energy. They do not react to every comment. They do not engage in every conflict. They choose what deserves their attention and what does not. This selective behavior confuses people because most individuals expect consistent reactions. When those reactions are missing, it creates unpredictability, and unpredictability leads to caution. People become careful around quiet individuals. They think more before speaking. They hesitate before acting because they are unsure of the response they will receive. The final reason quiet people are dangerous is something most never notice. It is not in how they act. It is in how they remember. Because while others move on quickly from conversations, emotions, and interactions, quiet individuals do something different. They store everything, every word, every reaction, every inconsistency. According to Professor Eleanor Whitmore, the human brain forms stronger memory patterns when observation is prioritized over expression. Quiet people naturally observe more than they speak, which means they retain more than they reveal. And over time, this creates a powerful internal map of human behavior. They begin to see connections others miss. They notice how someone's words change depending on the situation. They detect small contradictions. They recognize emotional patterns that repeat over time. This is not accidental. It is built through silence. Professor Eleanor Whitmore explains that long-term observation leads to deeper behavioral understanding than short-term reaction. While others focus on the moment, quiet individuals focus on patterns across time, and patterns expose truth. This is where they become unpredictable, because their actions are not based on a single moment, they are based on accumulated understanding. While others react instantly, quiet people respond after processing everything they have seen before. This makes their behavior feel unexpected, even calculated. But it is not random, it is informed. There is also a level of emotional distance that makes them difficult to influence. Quiet individuals do not attach themselves easily to temporary emotions. They do not let every situation affect their internal state. They observe emotions instead of being controlled by them. This creates a gap between stimulus and response. And inside that gap, they have control. According to Professor Eleanor Whitmore, the ability to pause between stimulus and response is one of the strongest indicators of psychological strength. It allows a person to choose their reaction instead of being driven by impulse. Quiet people live in that pause. They do not rush, they do not react without thinking. They allow themselves to fully understand before acting, and this patience gives them an advantage most people never develop. Because in critical moments, they are not overwhelmed, they are focused. Another overlooked aspect is how they handle information. Quiet people rarely share everything they know. Even when they understand a situation completely, they choose carefully what to reveal and what to keep hidden. This selective communication creates control, because information, once shared, cannot be taken back. Professor Eleanor Whitmore explains that controlled disclosure increases influence. The less people know about your full understanding, the harder it is for them to predict your next move. Quiet individuals use this naturally. They reveal just enough to function, but never enough to be fully understood. This keeps them one step ahead. There's also a long-term effect. Over time, people begin to sense that quiet individuals are not easy to read. They realize that simple tactics do not work on them. Emotional manipulation fails. Pressure has little impact. And slowly, without any direct effort, respect forms. Not loud respect, not obvious admiration, but a subtle awareness that this person is different, that they cannot be easily influenced, that they see more than they say. Professor Eleanor Whitmore explains that true psychological presence does not come from dominance. It comes from consistency, control, and awareness over time.